Right now, Xabi Alonso is probably the favourite to take over at Real Madrid, return to the Bernabeu next season, and he's got some interesting dynamics within that Real Madrid squad that he's going to have to sort out. It's a very different style of management from what you see at the moment with Ancelotti, who's kind of setting up a basic structure to a certain extent, being quite pragmatic in games, to Xabi Alonso, who's very much along the lines of positional play with a little bit of variation. He sometimes plays with a 4, sometimes plays with a 3. Sometimes it looks like a 3 when it's a 4, and sometimes it looks like a 4 when it's a 3. And we're also going to talk about that man that I'm not too keen on in Kylian Mbappe and how he fits into this tactic. By the way, first thing, we know Leverkusen were invincible last year. They've actually only lost, they're nowhere near the title this year. They're about 8 points off now, but they've only lost 2 games. It's the draws that have killed them, but still looking really strong, obviously. Bayern Munich have picked up considerably this season, and probably it's at a level now in terms of the quality of squad where you'd expect them. But Xabi Alonso has been kind of playing this 3-4-2-1 a lot of the time. Now, during season 1, it was very much Wirtz as the 10, and then Hoffman as the 11, and this rotated between Schick, Boniface. They had players like such as Frimpong down this left-hand side. Grimaldo, they haven't changed as much. They had Xhaka, Palacios, is it Andrić as well in the midfield? And then they had back 3 that hasn't changed that much this season either, with Mbappe, Jonathan Tah, and I think it's Tapsoba out on this right-hand side. And what they tend to do, because of the role of Frimpong, the 2 full-backs are very, very different. The 2 wing-backs are very, very different at Leverkusen. We know Frimpong is pretty much a winger and likes to go high, and sometimes it actually turns into a bit of a 4-4-2, with your right back in particular being extremely wide. Obviously, with that space being left by Frimpong, it's so important that this right back is very comfortable at defending in these wide areas. And it's actually something, sorry to bring Manchester United into it, it's something that I'm really hoping Manchester United do next year, with a Mazraoui playing as a very much a wide centre back. He's already done it this season, and then allowing someone like Diallo to play as a wing back. I've done that in certain games before he got injured, but it wasn't the preference. Maybe when Man United sign some better 10s, it might free this up, and it gives you an option of ended up looking like a 4-4-2. And at times, you know, a lot of teams around Europe line up in this 4-4-2 out of possession. What we're looking is this dynamism on this right-hand side with speed. Your back 3 in particular, the right-hand side or the side that's covering this winger, this wide player, needs to be very good coming into wide areas. The left back is a little bit more technical, with Grimaldo still getting forward, still getting quite high. Now, this is going to be an interesting dynamic that we'll try and do in FM, and we'll go through a couple of the issues that we've got with sort of like the in possession, the out of possession stuff, and how, you know, a certain role limits you in certain ways, and then we definitely get that with the wing back. So the 2 6s, the 2 sitters, the 2 holders, you know, you've got your Granit Xhaka, who's very much a sort of like a defensive playmaker, superb. Not as energetic as what he was maybe in Arsenal. Obviously, he's getting to that age where a little bit of a sweet spot where he's a little bit calmer in play, maybe out of possession as well. And in and around him, they've got Palacios, they've got Andrić, Palacios in particular, who's very aggressive off the ball. And then the front 3, we've got that playmaker in Florian Wirtz. At the moment, Real Madrid don't really have that, so that's something to think about. And then this season, Hoffman's barely played. I think he's only made about 8 or 9 Bundesliga starts, and it's actually been Nathan Teller that has done a lot of it, the former Burnley Southampton player. And he's very much a winger, very much working in these areas. I know Florian Wirtz has been out. I think a couple of weeks ago, they actually went with a 3-5-2 with 3 central midfielders. I think Garcia played the Spanish player when Wirtz was out. He was actually on the bench. So they've been flexible and fluent. But if we're going to kind of hold Xabi to one kind of tactic, it's this. But he does want his number 9 to be very much, can do a whole raft of things. So we're looking at maybe that complete forward kind of player that will run into channels, will hold up the ball, will link play, will work hard. And that doesn't suit the number 9 at Real Madrid. Is he number 9? Yeah, he's a number 9. So with that, that is something that's going to be really tricky to bring. Obviously, we know that we're going to have to play with Mbappe somewhere. How we fit him into this sort of system is going to be really interesting. So let's go and see what I've put together in Football Manager. So I've just done a little season just to kind of show off the tactic that look, we are Real Madrid, we're expected, but it's been actually really good. Interestingly, defensive-wise, because we've obviously moved to a back 3, we've been super strong in defence, only conceding 19 goals. So one goal every other game is pretty phenomenal. Not many, well, decent enough. How many in terms of the league? Second in the most behind Barcelona. We ended up winning the league on goal difference. No, it would have been head-to-head, right? However, we did lose the last game of the season, Mallorca 2-1. So right up until game week 38, we'd hardly actually lost one game. So Tactic works, no problem. Does it copy straight in to Real Madrid's tactic from Bayer Leverkusen? Absolutely not. So before we dive into the details of all the team instructions, player instructions, the roles and what we've changed, the tactic is available for the patrons, link down in the description if you want to support the channel. That would be wonderful. However, don't worry, during this video, we're going to go through all the team, player instructions, any changes, tweaks, so you can copy it into your own FM24 save yourself. Link down in the description. Smash a like while you're there. Let's go. This is what I've put together. So it is very much on the ilk of the team instructions. By the way, I have done a Leverkusen video based on Xabi Alonso's invincible side from last season. I will even leave a link down in the description for that, so you can watch that as well. It goes into a little bit more in depth of what the roles of each player was doing. However, I've kind of had to tweak it. The one noticeable tweak is that we kind of know that on this right-hand side, Trent Alexander-Arnold is going to be pretty much, you know, a nailed-on signing. And how does that fit in from what a Bayer Leverkusen tactic would look into a Real Madrid tactic? And the main answer is that he's more of a Grimaldo side, so very technical, good in wide areas, get the balls in the box, compared to a Frimpong who kind of relies on his dynamism and pace. So what we've actually done is kind of flip the tactic a little bit, and we've moved the wing back role, sort of like the Frimpong role, to this left hand side, and then the right hand side being the more technical side. So this is what I've put together in terms of the player roles, and we'll talk about as we go to the pitch the reasons for it. So basic sweeper keeper, like Courtois is probably not as good as the goalkeeper. Is it Hadreki? I'm terrible at pronunciations, but the Leverkusen goalkeeper, he's probably not as good as what he is. So you could even maybe argue bog standard goalkeeper, sweeper keeper on defend. I've just gone sweeper keeper on support just to keep it the same. The back three is interesting. There's plenty of options. What I would say, the Jonathan Tah role will probably go to Rudiger. Very strong, physical, quicker than Jonathan Tah, so very useful. But obviously he's getting to that age. What age is Rudiger now? 31, so he'll be 30, probably 32 nearly by the start of the new season. So yeah, middle centre-back would probably suit him a little bit in these latter years. The right-hand side, I know he's been out injured, but it has to be Eder Militao. Depending on how the tactic works, he's going to have plenty of cover. I do think, you know, Trent, we'll talk about Trent and going forward, but defensively we know that he has struggled at times, but having that back three behind him, I think does suit a Trent in terms of being able to get forward, not worry so much about being caught out in these wide areas. He's going to have a little bit more support in terms of having that support structure behind him in Militao. You know, even if at times they end up looking like a 4-4-2, he might find himself right midfield with a Militao round and then left wing back coming back round to make that back four. So there's an option. Left back could be a whole host of players. I think, you know, if they're wanting to go down that route of, as I said, the right-hand side with Frimpong and Tabsoba, where it's very much the right centre-half becoming almost a right-back. If we're flipping it to the left-hand side, this almost needs to be a left-back. So what could happen would be, it could be David Alaba if he gets himself fit. Obviously, had horrendous injuries, come back in late. I think he would definitely be an option there. But then they've also potentially got the option, what they do with the transfer market that we'll talk about in left wing-back, is perhaps play Ferland Mendy there. He's been tremendous at left back. He can do a job in FM, so he's played it potentially a little bit in game, so he's not absolutely alien to it. Maybe in games that they're expected to dominate as well, maybe having that extra ball player, ball carrier playing in defence, I think would be superb. So there's an option with that. And then obviously they've got other players as well. Asensio, I imagine, will rotate across all three options. They may even dive into the market and sign a centre-back. However, I flipped it and signed a wide player. I would be surprised if he went down the route of putting a Rodrigo in, who's maybe going to find himself a little bit on the fringes, but would be a good rotation option for this front three. Maybe at times would start up front. He's got maybe the attitude and the work rate in terms of his mentals to do it. Whether Xavi goes along them lines, I'll be surprised. You know, so with that, I've actually brought back a former Real Madrid youngster in Gutierrez, Miguel Gutierrez at Girona. He started at Real Madrid. I imagine they've got some kind of buyback clause on that. He would be superb. He's still not in the same ilk of a Jeremy Frimpong, and it would have been probably more ideal for them to try and get, you know, they've been linked for so long for Alphonso Davies. However, that's no longer an option. I think that would have been generally the plan, and that would have been my life. Having Alphonso Davies on that left-hand side in that attack role would have been superb. Now, we're going to talk about the wing-back. if you watch my video, I go through bits of generally trying to get the role to work as much as possible. We have a downside to this in FM that whatever role you choose in possession for in possession stuff will affect the out of possession stuff. And if you choose a role based on the out of possession stuff, it then kind of prevents a problem. It kind of then gives you a problem in terms of the in possession. And with us, this role here, he will sit in both, even though one's on support, one's on attack. They will generally try and sit back into a back five, which is generally not a problem. Leverkusen do that, so that's not much of an issue. However, what we do find is that generally sometimes the wing back on attack doesn't get as high in build-up as you would like, and vice versa. If you then moved it on to maybe this version, which is the version that I have also got in the Xabi Alonso video, if we go wing on attack, despite having some weird and wonderful instructions that I kind of tried on marking the left winger and stuff like that for him to track him a little bit better, he does it at times, but he does it at odd times, and it's a little bit of a gamble in terms of if you're really wanting him to come and sit back in to make a five, doesn't happen that often. He often finds himself chasing the winger, and then if the ball's played in at the far post, the winger generally beats the other winger. The left winger beats our right winger to the ball because he's kind of tracking back rather than being in a more defensive position. So something to be aware of. I am hoping FM really step up the in and out of possession stuff for FM26 because it's a little bit limiting. So to give us that general balance, and I also think as well, because of the roles and the players he's got in the forward areas, he may go down the route of trying to sign a very athletic fullback, but a fullback nonetheless, rather than a winger. So I think, we know how good Trent is. Gutierrez has had a fantastic couple of seasons at Girona. So I'd have no problems. I think them two would work wonderfully well. And then it kind of gives, once again, with the roles of some of the midfielders in here compared to Leverkusen. And then once again, them attacking players, maybe off the ball a little bit questionable. Having more of a back five with attacking fullbacks isn't the end of the world. So midfield 2. Now, this is sort of like the Xhaka role. I've gone with a DLP on defend, just someone who's going to sit in there and set play. Now, it could be, I think Jude will not do it. I think the idea is that he'll play much further up. We've actually got him starting in the striking role for this tactic. And that's down to, I'm not sure where Real Madrid are going to spend their money in the summer. Obviously, they're going to bring Trent in. Where they're going to spend their money in the summer, are they going to go and bring that striker in? Because we'll talk about the issues with Mbappe in a little bit. But for me, it would either be a Camavinga or Tchouaméni. Really good starting point now with Cruz gone, Modric likely to go. It's a really good time for them to really shine and dominate that midfield. At the moment, it probably looks a little bit more like Camavinga. I'm pretty sure Camavinga's actually played more games than Tchouaméni this year. So, yeah, we're looking at that Camavinga as that DLP with Tchouaméni being able to do it. And on this side, once again, it's maybe time for Valverde to take up a more prominent role. So being that little bit of a destroyer, a little bit more quality. He's very much more on the lines of a Palacios than an Andrić, because Palacios has a little bit, but we know that Federico Valverde has so much more in terms of that box threat. And what we've got in this right-hand side, because we've got Trent, who's a little bit more kind of being that support role in possession, it may allow, once again, with the back three, it may allow Valverde to do that and break the box that way. Some of that he's recently scored that tremendous goal against Bilbao later on, in and around the penalty area, rather than being that sitter. We don't want him to sit and dictate. He's nice on the ball, but we're going to leave that to Camavinga. We'll leave that to Trent and the defenders. And can we get Valverde a little bit higher up the pitch? Okay, the interesting dynamic is the front three. Now, we're going to talk about Kylian Mbappe right now. At the moment, I've got him in as a bit of a shadow striker. Now, right, quite easily, you could shove him out on the wing and be more of a winger coming inside on that right. I think he needs to be out on this right-hand side. It's pointless moving Vinicius Jr. to suit him. I think Mbappe is maybe a bit more, not flexible, but can maybe do the other sides better. He's done it at times, France, etc. I think he's done it at times at Real Madrid when they've kind of played these split strikers. So there's an option there. I've just not kept him out on the wide area. He's started to come and show for the ball. However, he's not doing it, I don't think, to be more involved. I think he's doing it because when he plays up front for Real Madrid, he doesn't want to be right up against those centre-halves. He hates a physical duel. So I thought this role of getting into these half spaces, driving, dribbling, and we have got stay wider on that instruction just so he comes a little bit wider. He's going to have Trent supporting around the right-hand side. He'll have Valverde moving him on into more of an advanced role, and he'll go long when Jude Bellingham comes short. So they have done this at times where they've had this kind of split striker with Vinny on the left, Bellingham and Mbappe. And I think right now, with the current squad, with just those signings that I've mentioned, this is going to be the most likely route. Now, the only thing that we could maybe get out of Mbappe is if Alonso says to him, like, I don't want you to help him build up. We know that you're not great at it, but we want you to work hard and we want you to get on the end of things. Is he happy just being that modern day poacher? I don't know. So I thought this was a little bit of a way of getting round that, having him been able to move and float a little bit, not having to set the line in terms of a press, gives Real Madrid a little bit of an outlet. Xabi Alonso does like to mix it up. You know, Patrick Schick is tremendous with his back to play. Not all about sort of like getting on the end of things. You know, a Boniface gets in behind. Jude Bellingham is more than a capable runner, a capable player of doing that. So that's why I've got this trio as set as they are. And then we know Vinny, no play instructions on any of the two attackers. Vinny is that inside forward. That's his best role, so he just needs to play it. And then Jude Bellingham, that F9, drop in, link play, get on the end of things as well. I think he was the leading goal scorer in this tactic in the simulation that we did as well. So yeah, I think he's got about 25 goals. So that's more than enough for Jude Bellingham. Is it his best role? No. Will Real Madrid go out and sign maybe a striker? I don't think so. It would have to be a striker that would have tremendous off-the-ball capabilities, because otherwise you'll end up looking a bit like the PSG from a couple of years ago with Neymar, Messi and Mbappe, and there wasn't much in terms of press. It's interesting to see how Mbappe treats the new manager coming in. We know at PSG he was the big dog, didn't press. Luis Enrique tried to get a little bit out of him, little bit of in terms of improvement, but now he's at Real Madrid. He's not necessarily the man at Real Madrid. They've got a few men that are capable of grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck and being the absolute superstars. So he may listen a little bit more to maybe a Xabi Alonso. Is he going to have to follow the line a little bit? I'm really interested to see if Xabi Alonso's appointed manager, what he does with Mbappe. Will he just stick him out on the wing? Will they do, it could be a basis of Mbappe out on that right-hand side and then allowing Trent to be a little bit more in terms of central, or will they just allow him to be out wide, bit of a cheater in terms of out of possession, typical to what actually Trent is used to at Liverpool as well, and then having that Valverde as that really box threat, cutting from the middle. Will Mbappe be happy out on the wing? I don't think so. So I've tried to come up with a solution that if I was manager, would I be thinking in terms of trying to get the best out of him, but also fit in a structure. He's got a little bit more behind him as well. He's got that Trent on that side. He's got Militao. He's got Valverde in that cluster. So lots of work around him. If we can just increase that work rate, we may be okay. All right, team instructions. So play out of defence, fairly wide, run at defence, be more expressive, higher tempo, move that ball quickly, and work the ball into the box. And that's very important with the Mbappe and Vinicius, not great on getting on the end of things. Can we make them late runs from Valverde? Can we wait till the fullbacks are getting round, etc.? So let's work, let's be clever. Run at defence, Mbappe and Vinny, Valverde, the wing-backs. We want it to be aggressive. We want it to be something that Man United have really struggled with in this system, is not enough ball carriers. And I don't think that will be the problem, especially now players like Cruz, Modric are now moving on. They've got a little bit more pace and energy in that midfield with your Camavingas, your Valverdes, your Tchouaménis. So there's that opportunity to probably drive at teams a little bit more. They've also got that backup as well of 3 defenders behind them. And once again, when they're playing against a low block, you sometimes want those 2 wide centre-backs to be really aggressive in terms of driving in, trying to break up presses, trying to break up blocks. So that's why I've got that on. Be more expressive. It's Real Madrid. We need that, right? Shorter passing to try and dominate the ball with that higher tempo because we want it to be moved. In transition, counter press. I think that, that's a mainstay of Xabi Alonso's. A lot of teams have dropped off. We're not talking 100%. We're not talking the Jurgen Klopp, but there will be that initial counter pressing, trying to keep teams penned in as much as possible. Counter attacking, yes, I think, with him, in particular with Mbappe kind of cheating up there, it'll be a ball that's maybe played into Jude, laid off, and then an Mbappe third man run, maybe a Jude into Valverde, then a through ball to Mbappe may work on the counter-attack. And then distribute, short kicks, distribute to the centre-backs. You want to build with that back 3 as much as possible, or back 4, depending on what the left-back does. Out of possession, I've left it blank because I don't see them being a really aggressive pressing side. I think Jude will set it on his own pace at times, but Vinicius, not great. and we know Mbappe is not great, so we're not going to go crazy with the out of possession stuff. I think it'll be more case of giving them more structure to dominate games with the ball. I think that'll be the thing. I think this is where they've come a little bit unstuck this year, is that Real Madrid have not dominated the ball enough in certain games. You know, we think about the Arsenal games, didn't dominate the ball. When you have players like Vini, Mbappe up there, you need to be, you can maybe rely on the counter-attacks, but they've definitely struggled. I think the game at Arsenal, they were completely outplayed. Do you want those players in a team that are dominating, not kind of relying on through balls and counter-attacks? So that's what maybe Xabi Alonso will try. High line, yeah, you've got pace in there at the back. Militao, Rudiger could still move as well. Ferland Mendy potentially, if he's playing on the left-hand side. So plenty of pace to move up the pitch. Okay, so this is from one of the opening game of the league season. So we've got a nice little press. We'll get that from Bellingham, which is good. And then you've got your back five, Alexander-Arnold, Militao, Rudiger, Alaba and Gutierrez. Vini out on that left. You've got your two midfielders in the middle. I love that as well from your central back. Who was that? I think it would have been, who was that diving in? Alaba diving in, being really aggressive. Something that Ruben Amorim's trying to get his centre-halves to do, really moving into that midfield when you can and trying to press maybe 10s. We've managed to stay nice and compact, wait for a misplaced pass, and now we're countering with Vini. And what we've got is for that Valverde, lovely pullback. If I'm being really picky, and I would love FM to be a little bit better in terms of where you players stand in and out of possession, I would have Alaba in here and then maybe even a Militao in here and been a little bit more aggressive in terms of rest defense. But it's FM, we can't get it perfect. But there is Valverde. That's what we want. He scores so many goals from arriving in the box. We don't want him to be that sitter camped on the edge of the area. We want him getting in there. Allow Camavinga to do the camping. Can he get in the box and score some goals? And then once again, we're clinical out of possession. It's, you're relying on Valverde to be aggressive, Camavinga, Bellingham to be aggressive, and it's the same again. Camavinga wins it, allowing then Vini to drive. Lovely touch. Bellingham, I love the movement of an F9 because out of possession, they drop right in at times and drop in to help out the midfield, maybe Barker number 6, but then in possession, they do drive and still be that number 9 in terms of getting into the box. And then once again, we're not overly been aggressive in the press. Gutierrez, been really aggressive though, driving once he picks up possession, driving. I think this is what Bellingham's going to need to do. We know, look at Mbappe, he's kind of hanging back. He doesn't want to bust to go. He doesn't want to get involved in that. But Jude Bellingham does and gets there to nip in at the near post. Now, one thing I do actually want to show you is this goal. Now, the goal's actually disallowed, but it just shows you how we're set up. So, we know a lot of teams will basically set up like this with the two centre-halves looking in to get on the ball from deep. Girona are a footballing side as well. We know that with how they've played over the last couple of years with Mikel in charge. So this is how we generally set up. It's a very aggressive lineup. I'm quite happy with how we've done this here. Vini's maybe ready to jump on this wide centre-back here. Mbappe's ready to jump on the number 12. Bellingham's kind of been a little bit of a cover shadow on one of the two sitters. Camavinga, if I'm being really picky, I would like him 5 or 10 yards further up the pitch. But as the play develops, we haven't got a press on, but we're now going to a nice little bit of a compact shape. Look, we forced the ball wide. Once again, can you just get Vini and Mbappe into positions on the pitch where they're supporting behind the ball, which I think is important. If they're here, they're going to be completely out of the way. He's now in a position, Mbappe, without having to do any work, really. He's in a good position to kind of stop switches, stop progression of the ball. Now it comes across here and we've won it. And we're in Militao to Valverde. Look at that run from Mbappe, touch and strike. And I think that's what we're going to rely on, is not being super aggressive out of possession, being quite compact, but wait for that ball to be played. Have your jumpers, your more aggressive players to strike, and then allowing Mbappe to do his thing in that final third. All right, it's a little bit of all over the place at the moment. I'm not sure. What are Real Madrid going to be doing? Let's say Xabi Alonso is appointed. We know Trent's coming in. Where else are Real Madrid realistically going to do their business this summer, and how will that affect the system? Will they go with, Alaba is getting on? Do they bring in a centre-back? I do think they'll bring in some kind of left wing-back. Do they just bring a Rodrigo in? Do they bring a Rodrigo in? At times even, Leverkusen have gone down this route of a 3-5-2. Does he do a 3-5-2 with Mbappe and Vinicius playing very wide kind of split strikers? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Link to the Patreon is down below if you want to support it. And thanks for watching. Smash a like. We'll see you later.
jealous lies.